Excited. Cool. So I guess before we open up to the audience, like, you want to start with like questions?
Yeah, I think. Laurie, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, I was when you're talking about touch, the need for human touch. This isn't like a setup question. Do you think someone like Joe Biden actually needs, like, he physically draws power from that, and it's not like him being condescending, that he actually needs it more? Like, do some people need touch more than others, and is he one of those guys, do you think?
I think there is such a thing as touchy-feely people.
Yeah, gropers.
Yeah. There's like a spectrum.
Right.
You're on the spectrum
right.
there. And I think, yes, some people really enjoy touch, and
Yeah.
some people, like, all the way through to the autistic people that really don't, and just really don't want to be touched. So we do have a spectrum, and Biden's probably on the side where he does kind of always want to touch people.
Right.
Yeah.
That reminds me of sort of introversion, extroversion. Like, I cannot understand how some people like talking to other people, and sort of in the same way, like, I like a hug every now and again, but you meet those people who are just like, hey, I want to touch your hand right now. You're like, why? We've just met.
I'm not gonna lie, this like whole show has had me really stressed out, since it was like, how do you tell Alex you're sad without using your words and he can't see you? Like, how do you like physically tell him? And I don't know, and and that's just me.
Or is that just men?
Should we look at how other people did it so you can learn how to communicate?
Wait, is that
sadness to
an
people?
answer to this?
I mean, this is how other people did it. We can see what they did. Let's see. Okay, sadness is up. Disgust is up here though. So the way to read this is emotion disgust. Like, most people pushed. They did some pushing to their arms. I don't know exactly.
Okay, well, we got that's. Sorry, I'm like really derailing this, but that was just something I was thinking about. But yeah, cool. You had like a list of questions.
Russ, as the scientist, always has good questions.
Claudia, as you are a science communicator, you spend a lot of time being in that role as a science communicator. What are some things that really like frustrate you? What's the last time you were frustrated?
I think in general the things that are frustrating are just how easily people believe misinformation. I guess in a way that's frustrating. It's also, it opens up an area where you can make a difference, and you can say, this isn't true at all, and we have the facts. So it's kind of frustrating to know that about how the human mind works, and how what I've heard is that people are more likely to believe misinformation and fake stuff than real things. And maybe it's because it's just more sensational, or more, it's easier for the brain to handle at some level.
We actually just went to a conference about just this, Russell and I actually. And I think a lot of it was around narrative, and how, like, misinformation usually comes with a good narrative, where fact, unless it's from people like you, doesn't often come with, like, a good juicy story, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of it is that, like, a narrative people can empathize, like, with anecdotes they can really empathize with, and that is truthful. I mean, your own experience and how you feel about things is a truthful experience, but it might not be representative of
And also I think some people like the controversy. I mean, really, flat earther, there's just such little that supports that at all, if anything.
Nothing.
And why is someone predisposed to want to be a flat earther? That goes a bit deeper, and I think they want to be controversial, they want to have attention. So as a communicator, I'd say you do need to, like, have a fine balance, because some battles you won't win, because you just won't.
I call beliefs like that "fuck you, dad" beliefs, because it's like all from, like, you can't tell me what to do.
It's like, okay, well then go walk off the edge of the earth then.
No, there's an ice wall, Claudia.
So there's like a lot of Republicans who would rather believe that, like, Hillary Clinton had a pedophile sex club in a pizza parlor than she was just a 68-year-old lady running for president. It's more exciting, and they get to connect with other people that that believe
Like
that's
that.
saga. That's
Yeah.
their free Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
You don't have to binge watch it. You just have to watch a couple videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People get hooked on a lot of different areas. So to me that's frustrating, is to know that and to have to disseminate some things, but I don't obviously can't let that get to me. So
So
be too much.
maybe before we open it up to the audience, so audience, if you have questions, get them ready. We were actually talking about this backstage, about related to like the wellness area, and so you were talking about how people turn, because your question was like, why do people turn to these things, and you were actually talking about why might people turn to the wellness.
Yeah, so as you know, I'm a neuroscientist, but I also work in wellness world, which has been riddled with crystals and magnetism and all sorts of things for a long
Jade
time.
eggs for your vagina.
Jade, goop, so it's like me versus goop sometimes. Although that's more Jen Gutner, actually. She's really on top of that. But I work within that world, and I have a different approach. I don't like to just like bash, because it doesn't actually help the narrative change and move forward. So my approach is to not Trojan horse it, but to come inside and just say like, actually, that's nice, but there isn't any evidence behind this, but there's evidence behind this, and so maybe we promote this better, because there is some real science behind this. And so I work with companies that, most of them, luckily, are science-based. But the wellness world is it's like the wild world of wellness. So there's a lot of things that are, like the jade eggs, like all sorts of things. There was this stupid patch that you put on, and they said NASA astronauts did this, and NASA said no, we didn't. But a lot of people want to believe things. And one of the reasons I was talking backstage that I believe that people gravitate to the wellness world today is that the medical world is failed in a lot of ways, and the system in general has failed a lot of ways. People, and women in particular. And so when women have pain and they're not felt as they're not seen, and they're not felt like, oh, I'm not heard here. I can go to my male gynecologist and he just tells me it's in my head. It's very frustrating for a woman to go through life with pain that is not diagnosed. That's completely, it's fibromyalgia or it's Lyme disease and it doesn't exist. It's just, you're just crazy or you're tired. And women got to a point, I think, that they just they said, no. I need help, and if you're not going to do it, then maybe somebody else will. And so I think that's why a lot of women have gravitated to the wellness world these days.
Do you want to open up to audience questions, actually?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a question for everybody. So ASMR, something that connects in your brain and then has a physical reaction from the scientists. I would love to hear about that. And then the non-scientists, is ASMR like a fun pastime or a creepy hobby?
Can it be both?
It's a hobby. I just do it a little bit on the side.
I will say, when the mic is too hot, like when I come, it really does feel like an ASMR thing. Like, getting ready for your next joke, and you're like, oh god.
Tingles.
But no, I should not answer first.
So ASMR, it's real. So again, it's that sound and touch connection. There's varying degrees of it. It's a level of like, do you enjoy it and do you not enjoy being touched? And so I think people are on this kind of spectrum of, do they feel joy from this specific touch? And also ASMR goes, with the same pattern in the brain. There are people that get more chills when they hear specific music, like I presented on music in the brain a while ago, and it was about, there's this thing that is called in Italian appoggiatura, and that means that you follow a symphony, and our brain is wired for music. First of all, so your brain is following the symphony, but when there's dissonance, so you have this like wonderful rhythm and everything, but when there's a dissonant sound that comes too abruptly, the brain actually goes into like a fear mode, and that's why you get the goosebumps and the chills on your skin. And ASMR toes that line between this is slightly fearful and scary, but also kind of comforting. So again, it's wherever you are on that line, whether you enjoy it or not. But it is a real physiological effect.
So are you saying that even though a lot of people experience maybe ASMR through like YouTube videos or something, it's actually the same symptom in other contexts too? So like through music, like that is
It's
tapping
related.
into the same.
It's tapping
same
into
pathway?
the same, yeah, it's related. So it's anything that has to do with sound and how our skin kind of changes. You get like the chills, or your brain picks it up as like, this is nice, but it's also fearful. So again, it's the same pathway, and we're wired for it. So it's just how we're wired.
To sort of steer that a little more towards the jadeg world, is that why like a sound bath feels so? I know you said a little bit about it, but like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The jade eggs, I haven't seen anything around that. But with sound baths, I think yes, there are ways to help the skin. You know, like when you have the sound waves. And when I say vibrations, I'm not talking about like you vibrate at a specific. You know, it's not that. It's literal sound waves. So the vibrations from the sound that make an effect on the skin can have a physiological effect.
Does anybody else from the I want to talk to Claudia all day, but does anybody else have questions from the audience?
I just have a question about that article you were talking about that relates cream and Alzheimer's. What publication was that? Where can we find that?
It just came out like a few days ago. I want to say it's UCSF researchers that did it. I'm not 100% sure because I was reading it on the way here, but I have the citation.
If you follow Claudia on Twitter, she just tweeted
Yeah, I've tweeted about it. I put it on my Facebook. So if you guys are on social media, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me if you have questions. But what they did was, and I looked at briefly looked at their credentials to see if they were linked to like L'Oreal or something. That would be like, of course, they wanted to study this. I think they didn't. I know they used a specific cream that they developed that used ceramide, cholesterol, and another substance because it must be a fatty acid. So they had already been publishing about their kind of trio that works on fatty acids. And so what they found in the paper is that it reduced levels of cytokines. Systemic cytokines. So you put a cream on and it feels nice on your skin, but then they took blood samples and they looked at the blood cytokine level and found that the general inflammation level of the body was lowered with this.
Are you supposed to put it all over your body or something?
I think they were using all over body. Yeah. So as the rationale behind this is as we age, our skin cracks more easily and allows more inflammation to happen. So the researchers thought, which is actually very clear, is like if the brain, we become leaky as we age. Leaky gut.
Yeah, I'm almost 30 and I'm starting to feel that.
I mean, it's just a matter of time before you just start leaking.
I'm like an old wine bag.
No, 30 is not old to
Oh, Dylan, you have not seen my body, bud. I'm ancient.
We all start getting a little leaky blood-brain barrier, leaky gut, leaky skin. And so what this means is that the stuff that normally gets kind of cornered into the organs, like your skin, it needs the cytokines to help heal wounds, for instance, little everyday wounds. So if this barrier becomes leaky, then that can then penetrate into the bloodstream. What happens is that these inflammatory mediators go through the bloodstream, and if you have a leaky brain membrane, that also goes up into the brain and causes brain inflammation. So one of the newer theories behind Alzheimer's disease is that it's an infection because if you have something like a herpes virus, you think it's just on your lip or whatever and it's fine. But as you get older, this virus can travel up into the brain, and the way the brain protects itself, this is a little bit too much, but anyway, the way the brain protects itself is it releases this protein called A-beta. So if you look at a person that has Alzheimer's disease, traditional Alzheimer's disease, they may have a lot of A-beta plaques in their brain. But as a neuroscientist, I can tell you that having a lot of A-beta doesn't mean you have dementia. It's just related. So we're still uncovering how all of this works. But it's promising to know that potentially we can treat something like dementia and Alzheimer's with something as simple as a skin cream.
Will you find a cure for Alzheimer's before I turn 80?
I will
27 years.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Dylan, you had
I had such a dumb comment. It was just by the fact that like herpes is linked to Alzheimer's, and that is just so sincerely fucked up in a way
Yes,
that I don't
yes.
think is deserving of like humanity. I like to think that we don't. But all right. Anyway, I have a question.
Let's get one more question from the audience.
So you mentioned the shivers, and I'm the kind of person who gets like crazy shivers all the time. Am I just vaguely scared all the time, or are there other reasons for that?
We're all vaguely scared all the time. That's life. It's horrifying.
Oh, I don't know how I can answer that. I mean, I think everyone just responds to stimuli differently, and you're probably wired to be a little bit more like jumpy in that sense. It's hard to say. Yeah. You've made it this far though, so it's working. Your survival mechanisms are working.
Final questions or comments from the panel?
I'm good. No, the ASMR thing was the only my only question. Like,
are things you
I
got all
don't feel
day.
awful. Yeah. So
You guys were a wonderful audience. Please, where can they find you two on the internet?
I'm on Twitter at AnyLaurie16, and I'm doing stand-up all over the place in LA.
Find her, please. And Claudia?
Yes, I'm all over the world, but I'm here for a while. So you can find me online. Yes, just Dr. Claudia or drclaudia.com.
sweet. And then we're
We're
Yeah,
at
we don't
Science
have
the
it
Show
yet.
pretty much
Yeah.
everywhere. If you took pictures of the show, if you want to say that you liked it, please find us on Twitter, find us on Facebook, find us on Gmail, and say what's up. We would love to communicate with you guys after the show. We're going to give the house back and get out of here. Find us outside. Thank you.
awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much, guys.